wicked friend. You betrayed me before and now you do it again. I blame myself. Never again. Good for you.
They say the market is the place where your past can find you. And that day, mine found me between bolts of Ankara fabric and the smell of fresh pepper in the air. I remember everything about that afternoon. The heat was thick. My wrapper was already clinging to my back before I had even walked past the first store. I had gone to the big supermarket on Lagos Island to buy fabric for a new bridal collection. Business was good. Life, for the first time in years, had found a rhythm that felt safe. I was Zainab Adesonia, and I had earned every bit of what I had. I was reaching for a roll of deep purple satin when I heard it. Zainab? The voice hit me in the chest before I even turned around. I knew that voice the way you know a scar. Not because it is beautiful, but because it once cut you open. I turned slowly, and there she was, Lola. She looked different. The fullness had left her face. The bold, laughing girl I once called my sister had been replaced by someone thinner, quieter, someone whose eyes moved carefully before her mouth did. She was wearing a plain cotton dress, the kind you wear when you are trying to not be noticed. The confidence I remembered, that bright, impossible confidence, was gone. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The market noise went on around us. Traders calling, children running, music playing somewhere in the distance. But between us, there was only silence. Lola, I finally said. My voice came out flat. I did not mean it that way. I simply did not know how else to say her name after everything. You must understand what Lola once meant to me before you can understand what she later took from me. We grew up in the same compound in Ibadan. We shared food, clothes, secrets, and prayers. When my father died and my mother could not afford my secondary school fees, it was Lola's mother who helped pay for one term. We were that close, the kind of close that people sing songs about. But friendships can be the most dangerous things in the world because the closer someone is to you, the better they know exactly where to cut. 7 years before that day in the market, Lola had told people that I was sleeping with Tunde before our traditional wedding. She had gone to his family, she had spoken to our mutual friends, she had wrapped her lie in concern, saying she was worried about my character and did not want Tunde to make a mistake. What she did not know was that Tunde would show me every message, every name, every word. We almost did not get married because of her. I lost 2 friendships, a business connection, and nearly the man I loved, all because of a story Lola chose to tell. I never knew why she did it. I never got the chance to ask. She disappeared before I could confront her, and I made peace with never knowing. I buried that chapter. I buried it deep. And then she was standing in front of me in a supermarket looking like rain had been falling on her for years. I heard you were doing well, she said, her voice almost a whisper. Your shop, I heard it is growing. Yes, I said, nothing more. That is good, Zainab, she smiled, but it was the kind of smile that carries weight behind it. You always deserved good things. I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing. She shifted her bag on her shoulder and looked away. I will not take your time. I was glad to see you are fine. She turned to walk away, and something inside me, something soft and foolish and too kind for its own good, made me call her back. Lola? She stopped. How are you doing? How is life treating you? She turned slowly, and what I saw in her eyes in that moment looked so much like pain that my chest tightened. That was the first mistake. Not speaking to her, not asking the question. The first mistake was believing what I saw. She told me her story, standing between the fabric shelves, her voice low and careful. A business partnership that collapsed and took everything with it. A job she lost when the company relocated. Rent she could no longer cover. A life that had been unraveling quietly while the rest of the world went on. She did not ask me for anything directly. That was what made it harder to say no. She simply said,
I did not know how things got this bad, Zainab, but I am managing. When a person says I am managing in that voice, quiet, stripped of pride, something in a woman like me cannot stay still. I drove home that evening with my mind full of noise. Tunde was in the sitting room when I got back, watching the news. I put down my bags and sat beside him. He could always tell when something was on my mind. He had learned to read my silences the way other men read books. "You look like you saw a ghost," he said. "Maybe I did," I replied. "I saw Lola today." The room changed. Tuna looked at me slowly. "Lola? Your Lola?" I said, "She's not my Lola," I said quickly. "But yes, her." He was quiet for a moment. "How does she look?" "Like life has been very unkind to her." He nodded slowly. He did not say good the way some people might. Tunde was not that kind of man. "What did she want?" I said. "Nothing. She just said she was glad to see I was fine." He looked at me carefully. "And what are you thinking?" I told him what I was thinking. That maybe people did change, that maybe carrying old pain forever was its own kind of prison, that she looked genuinely broken, not the bold, careless girl who had tried to tear my life apart years ago. Tunde was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Zainab, your heart is one of the best things about you, but your heart has also always been your softest point." I heard him, I did, but I did not listen. The following week, I called Lola. I told her she could stay with us temporarily while she got back on her feet. I also offered her a small role assisting at the fashion shop, receiving clients, helping with orders, keeping things organized. Nothing major, just enough to give her a footing. She wept on the phone, real tears, or what sounded like real tears. She said she did not deserve my kindness. She said God had sent her to me. My neighbors were not as moved. Mama Chisom from the flat next door pulled me aside the day Lola moved in. She spoke quietly, the way older women speak when they want to be sure you are really hearing them. "Zainab, I know you have a good heart, but some doors, when you close them for a reason, not because you hate, but because you know what enters through that door." I thanked her. I told her I was careful. She said, "Careful is not always enough." I did not fully understand those words then. I would come to understand them completely, but only after the damage was already done. Lola settled in with a quietness that felt respectful. She woke early, cleaned without being asked, and arrived at the shop before I did some mornings. She was polite with clients. She remembered names and preferences, laughed easily, and carried herself with a humility that made people warm to her quickly. Everyone who came to the shop noticed. "Your friend is so sweet," one regular customer told me. "She remembered that I wanted the off-shoulder style without even checking the book. You are lucky to have someone like her." I smiled. I felt proud even, like helping Lola had been the right decision after all. But there was something I was too close to see, something small and sharp being planted beneath the surface, the way a farmer plants a seed under soil when no one can watch it grow. Lola was not helping my business. Lola was learning it. She was studying my clients, memorizing my methods, absorbing my relationships, and slowly, so slowly that even I did not notice, she was making herself necessary to someone. And the day you make yourself necessary to someone, you have already begun to own them.
There is a thing termites do that makes them more dangerous than any other pest I know. They do not destroy a house from the outside. They eat from inside the walls, quietly, patiently, without ever showing themselves. Until one morning you press your hand against a beam and it turns to dust. That is what Lola did to my life. It did not happen all at once. If it had, I would have seen it. It happened the way fog arrives, so slowly that by the time you realize you cannot see clearly, it has already surrounded you. The first sign was the customers. One afternoon, my best client, a woman named Mrs. Folake, who ordered bridal set for her entire family, called the shop. Lola answered. I was in the back room cutting fabric. I thought nothing of it. But when Mrs. Folake did not ask to speak to me, I felt something strange in my chest, a small, unfamiliar discomfort. The second time she called, she asked specifically for Lola. I asked Lola about it. She smiled softly and said, "She just found it easier to reach me when you are busy. I hope that is okay." And then she added, "You are always the creative brain, Zainab. I am just the hands that help." She said it with such warmth that I felt guilty for feeling threatened, but the feeling stayed. Then one evening, I overheard a conversation at the shop. Two of my younger clients were talking while they waited. "The woman who runs the shop now is really approachable," one said. "Zainab is talented, but she can be a bit too serious sometimes. The friend, Lola, she is easier to talk to." I stood very still behind the curtain. Too serious. Those two words turned in my stomach the rest of the day. At home, things shifted too. Slowly, carefully. Lola began spending more time with Tunde in the sitting room in the evenings. At first, it was innocent. She would ask him for advice on navigating her personal business challenges. Tunde, being a man who loves to solve problems, engaged warmly. I noticed. I watched. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then came the evening when I raised my voice at Lola over a missing client file. It was a real problem. An important order had been delayed because the client's measurements were not recorded correctly. I was angry and I showed it. Lola immediately began to cry. Not loud, dramatic tears, quiet ones, the kind that make observers feel sorry. Tunde walked in the middle of it. "Zainab," he said gently, "take it easy. She is trying her best." I looked at my husband, and in that moment, something very cold moved through me. He was protecting her, in my own house, in front of me. I went to bed that night with a heaviness in my chest that sleep could not touch. I lay in the dark, listening to the ceiling fan and asking myself questions I did not want to answer. Was I overreacting? Was I being unkind to someone who had changed? Was I turning into the jealous, difficult woman Lola had once falsely accused me of being? That self-doubt, that quiet, creeping second-guessing was the most powerful weapon Lola had, and she had placed it inside me so gently that I had not even felt it enter. Meanwhile, outside my home, a story was forming. Neighbors began to notice that Zainab's friend at the shop is always present, always smiling, always calm. They compared that image to mine. Busy, stressed, sometimes distracted. Someone said Lola was the real energy behind the business. Another said Zainab had become too proud since things were going well. I was losing something I had built with my own hands. And the worst part was that I was being made to feel it was my own fault. The client calls were moving to Lola's personal number. Fabric suppliers were beginning to contact her directly. And when I asked how they got her contact, the answers were always vague. I should have acted then. I should have asked harder questions. I should have removed Lola from my home and my business the moment my gut first spoke. But I kept silencing my instincts because I did not want to become the woman who punished someone for trying to change. And that silence was about to cost me everything.
The contract was for a fashion supplier based in Abuja, a government supplier looking for a local label to produce official uniform sets for 300 staff. It was the kind of order that changes a small business forever. I had spent 3 months building the relationship, submitting documents, attending meetings, sending samples. 3 months of my time, my money, my hope. I found out it was registered under Lola's name on a Thursday morning. I remember the day exactly. The sun was already high when I got the message from my contact at the procurement office, a woman named Bisi who I had gone to secondary school with. She sent a WhatsApp message, simple and confused. "Zainab, I thought this was your contract, but the registration has a different name, a Lola Fashions. I assumed it was a rebrand." I read the message 3 times. Then I walked to Lola's room. She was sitting on the bed,
phone in her hand, dressed like someone who was expecting a difficult conversation. There was a stillness about her that told me she already knew what I had come to say. "Lola," I said. My voice was flat, controlled. "The Abuja contract. Explain it to me." She did not panic. She did not look away. She looked at me with a calm that chilled me more than anger would have. "I worked on that contract too, Zainab," she said. "I attended 2 of the meetings. I handled the follow-up calls. I put in effort. It is my client," I said, "my business, my 3 months of work." "Your business," she repeated slowly, like she was tasting the words. "It has always been your business, hasn't it? Your shop, your house, your husband, your life. I was just a guest here, someone you helped, someone you kept at a distance even while pretending to be generous." My hands were trembling, not from fear, from the effort of keeping everything inside. "Get out," I said, quietly, firmly. She stood up, and then something I never expected happened. She laughed, low, tired, but real. "You never truly forgave me, Zainab," she said. "You brought me here so you could feel powerful, so you could watch me owe you. But I built myself in your shadow, and when I stepped out, you could not handle it." "You stole from me," I said. "I took what I earned," she replied. "You were never going to promote me. You were never going to let me grow beyond being my helper. You wanted me grateful and small forever." The words landed like stones. I will be honest, some small part of me shook under them, not because they were true, but because she delivered them with such conviction that for a terrible moment, I questioned myself again. That was Lola's gift. She could take truth and mix it with poison until you could no longer tell which was which. She packed her things that same day. She left my house calmly, with only her bags and what she had stolen. And as she walked out of my gate, she turned and said one last thing. "Tell Tunde I said goodbye." The way she said it made the ground move beneath my feet. I stood at my gate long after she was gone, the morning sun pressing down on my head, and I thought about every warning I had ignored, every instinct I had silenced, every kind thing I had done that she had turned into a weapon. And then the calls started. Suppliers I had worked with for years were receiving messages from Lola, messages that implied our partnership had simply separated professionally. She was spinning a story where she was the hardworking one who had outgrown a difficult working environment. 3 clients called me within 2 days to ask if the business was having issues, and Tunde, my Tunde, became very quiet. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he needed time to think. I asked him what he was thinking about. He looked at me for a long time and said nothing. That silence was the thing that finally broke me open. I sat on the floor of my bedroom that night, back against the wall, knees pressed to my chest, and I wept the way a person weeps when they have no more strength to hold themselves upright. I cried for my business, for the clients I was losing, for my husband's eyes that no longer looked at me the same way, for the years I had spent building something only to watch it crack. And then, slowly, something hardened inside me. Something old and quiet and patient. I had rebuilt my life once before, after Lola. I had done it without help, without noise, without anyone holding my hand. I had done it through early mornings and late nights, and a faith in myself that no one could touch. I would do it again. But this time, I would not rebuild quietly. This time, Lola would know exactly what she had started. I had spent my whole life being the woman who forgave, who stayed quiet, who moved on without making noise. People had mistaken that for weakness so many times that I had started to believe it myself. No more. The first thing I did was call BC at the procurement office. We spoke for over an hour. I had emails, I had samples, I had documentation showing every step of the contract process, meeting dates, correspondence, supplier negotiations, all in my name. The contract registration under Lola's name had been done fraudulently using documents she had accessed while living in my home, working from my office.
BC escalated immediately. I also went to my lawyer, a quiet, thorough man named Mr. Adekoya, who I had used once before for a business matter. I laid everything before him: the fraudulent registration, the diversion of clients, the use of my business contact and supplier relationships to establish a parallel operation. He looked at the evidence carefully, then looked at me. "Madam Zainab," he said, "she did not just betray you, she committed a crime." Those words settled something in my bones. While the legal process began, I did something else, something that required more discipline than anger. I reached out personally to every client and supplier that mattered. Not to complain, not to beg. I invited them for tea, one by one, and I showed them documentation, quiet, professional, factual. I did not drag Lola's name through the mud with emotion. I simply showed what was true, calmly and clearly. People respect calm truth far more than loud accusation. I had learnt that the hard way. Within 3 weeks, most of my key clients had returned. The suppliers who had been confused apologized. Mrs. Folake, my best bridal client, called me herself and said, "Zainab, I should have known. That girl's eyes were never still." The government contract was reopened after investigation. Lola's fraudulent application was cancelled. She was reported to the relevant authorities for document forgery and the matter was officially on record. She would not find it easy to conduct legitimate business anywhere serious for a long time. But the deeper wound, my home, that required something different. Tunde and I sat together for the first real, honest conversation we had shared in months. I did not shout, I did not accuse. I simply told him everything. What I had seen, what I had felt, what I had noticed between him and Lola, and I asked him to be honest with me. He was silent for a very long time. Then he said something that I will carry always. I was not pursuing her, Zainab, but I allowed too much. She made herself easy to talk to, and I did not question why. That was my failure, and I am sorry. It was not a perfect answer. It was not a clean answer, but it was an honest one. We did not heal immediately. Some things take time. But we chose each other again, deliberately, with full knowledge of where the cracks were. That choice meant more to me than any easy reconciliation could have. As for Lola, I heard from a mutual acquaintance some months later that she had moved away, that the legal case had followed her, that her new business attempts were meeting walls. I felt nothing triumphant when I heard this. I want to be clear about that. I did not feel joy. What I felt was the particular peace of a woman who stood in her own truth and did not flinch. Here is what I know now that I wish I had known at the gate of that supermarket. Forgiveness is real. Forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is in fact one of the most powerful things a human being can offer another human being. Do not let anyone take that from you. But forgiveness is not the same as access. You can release a person from the debt of their past without handing them the keys to your present. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can pray for someone you do not trust. These things can exist together. The door of your life is yours. You decide who stands at it. You decide who enters. And you are allowed, you are fully, completely allowed to say, "I have forgiven you, but this door is no longer open to you." That is not coldness. That is wisdom. And wisdom, I have learned, is simply pain that has been given enough time to teach you something. I am Zainab. I rebuilt once, I rebuilt twice. And the woman who came out the second time understood something the first one had not. Your softness is a gift. Guard it. Not everyone who arrives at your door deserves to hold it. If this story moved you, if you have ever forgiven someone only to be hurt again, or if you have ever had to choose between kindness and self-protection, share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more African folktales and real-life stories that speak to the soul. Leave a comment below and tell me, would you have given Lola a second chance? I want to know what you think.